I was hoping for the Benny Hill music, to be honest. So my name's Mustafa. I'm a design advocate. When I introduce myself, most people look at me blankly, like you are now. What's a design advocate? So a design advocate is a UX designer who talks about design and advocates design best practice from Google's perspective. In this talk, I'm going to talk about hacked user perception, or how we can hack or make things feel faster. Whoops. Speed. So why is speed important? If you're going to take away anything from this talk, it's this concept of occupied and unoccupied time. So there's a story of Houston Airport where they got a lot of complaints about people waiting for their luggage when they got off the plane. So they spent lots of money optimizing the experience down to about 7 minutes, and people still complained. So what they did was they parked the plane further away from the terminal, and complaints went down to 0. Very evil. But it worked. Now, why is that? It's because you're filling the person's time with an activity. If you think about the last time you got off a plane, when you're waiting on the carousel for your suitcase to come, it just seems to take forever. But if you actually fill the time with an activity of something to do, then it feels like a really quick experience. So if you're going to take away anything from that, that's the thing you should take away. So the talk's split into 2 parts. It's going to be a lot of research, and then actual design devices you can use to occupy people's time. So one interesting company, the Financial Times, what they do is, because trying to aim for every type of user is really expensive, they segment their users into a few buckets. So the idea is, if a user is coming to the site and reading 5 articles a month, they call that the tipping point. So they target those users to get them to 9 articles a month. And once they do that, they know the person's going to subscribe, because subscribing to the Financial Times is actually quite expensive. But what they found is by just making the site 1% faster, 1 second faster, they increase engagement of 5% for everybody. So speed is really, really important. And the Financial Times are really good at doing this and optimizing for this. Conversely, when you flip it, you will probably have seen this number. We've been using it at Google quite a long time. 53% of mobile visits are abandoned after 3 seconds. So speed is really critical, because you will lose a lot of people. And this compounds, like for every 2 seconds, bounce rates go up quite considerably. And conversions drop quite a lot. Yay, water. Sorry, I get excited very easily. But user behavior is affected by many different things. Now, you could probably break this down into others as well, but these are the ones which I like to consider based on the research that we've done at Google. So occupied time is something that I've spoken about and will continue to hit upon quite a few times throughout the talk. Intention, state of mind, state of body, we're going to go through that in some of the research which I'm going to show you. Importance is a weird one, because importance is the catalyst in most research projects. Like if you ever do research, you see after 20 seconds someone's still on your site, you're thinking, what is this person doing? Why are they here? They're just waiting for a blank page. Or generally speaking, that's if the action's really important for someone, they'll wait. So if you're in a foreign country and the map is taking forever to load, you're going to wait. If it's a life or death situation, you're going to wait. And there's many stories in the industry where people are looking for the address of a local hospital and they can't find it because a lot of the websites are not customized for that. So importance is like a weird catalyst. And we don't really want to force our users to be in that kind of bucket of behavior, because we want to make sure that even the ones where the experience is critical for, that we still optimize for that. So let's look at intention first. So 30% of users are generally just browsing, on your commute to work. When you're just waiting for an appointment in a doctor's office, you're just browsing. You have no real thing that you're trying to do. But for verticals, this changes. So for retail, that might go up a little bit, 34%. 30% of users, generally speaking, just want to find something out, maybe the price of something. Typically for travel sites, that will go up to 49%, which again is obvious, right? Because you just want to find out, is it cheap during the school holidays? Most likely not. But you're just trying to find something out. 29% of users we find actually have a very specific thing that they're trying to find out. And obviously this goes up, or want to actually specifically do something. This actually goes up to 57% for financial sites. Why? Because no one goes to a banking site looking for the great mortgage, right? You have a specific thing you want to do. So it's very common sense. So intention will change depending on the area that you're working in, right? Also, where do people browse? Now, when I first saw this, like, home for a mobile device seemed weird, because like a mobile device is mobile, right? Well, work is different for different people. For some people, it's in an office. For some people, it's on a building site, right? And connectivity is really strong when you're at home. You're relaxed, you're calm, you're more likely to do stuff, you're not traveling around. So seeing 82% of people, generally speaking, engaging on the mobile web at home makes sense. So yeah, so that's state of mind as well, so like relax, calm. And yeah, generally speaking, experiences are much faster when you're at home, right? So like the same site can take much longer when you're out and about. Why? Internet connectivity. Generally speaking, you have dead zones, even in major cities like San Francisco and London, where you might go through a couple of buildings and connectivity will die for very briefly. So we see most people are using sites at home. Sites will load quite quickly at home, obviously Wi-Fi. One thing that's very interesting, though, is we often think about these experiences as very singular things. Like, experiences actually traverse across different devices. You'll find people add stuff to their cart on mobile, and then at the end of the day, they'll go to their laptop or desktop and actually buy the thing, which is weird. Why are people doing that? Is this maybe a self-fulfilling prophecy about speed? People are really untrustworthy of mobile because it might cancel. It may be the fact that you can see the pictures much larger on your desktop and laptop. In which case, should we be designing experiences on mobile which allows people to explore the thing that they're actually purchasing? So this is quite an interesting thing. It also means that if you're optimizing for mobile, you have to make sure that you're doing the same for your laptop and desktop. It's like a continuous experience. We don't have singular things. Every experience compounds to the other. So if a user's coming to your website after visiting 5 really bad experiences, their trust of your site or their patience is going to be really small. So if you can do a quick win, you may actually convert them much more easily, because experiences compound. Now, speed is really important. When you ask users on the web, it's like most will tell you that it's the most important thing that you'll actually see. And see, I studied graphic design, so when I see this, I get depressed, because how attractive a site looks is really important to me, but it's not for everyone else. But if you think about it, all of it is speed. So how quickly a site takes to load, most important. How easy it is to find something that I'm looking for. This is about information architecture. So how quickly someone can perceptively find something. Again, that's speed, right? How does something fit on my screen? How well it fits? Again, do I see the main call to actions quickly? Can I get through this experience as quickly as possible to do the thing that I want to do? How easy or simple is the site to use? Again, this is about speed and perceptive speed. Can they complete their task simply? So if you think about it, speed is really important. It's just users may articulate it slightly differently. But speed is broken down into 2 buckets, real and perceived, because people are weird. Especially the fact that we perceive like time much slower than it actually is, which is weird. But this is very scary. 30% or slightly over of users perceive fast sites to be slow. And that's weird, because we've been telling people, make sure you optimize your code, make sure you optimize your site to be really quick from a technological point of view, but 30% of users still think it's slow. So if your market is young people, again, I know this is the stereotype, young people perceive things much slower. Maybe it's to do with the adrenaline. More adrenaline means that the world slows down, so everything feels much slower. But it's important, if the people that you're aiming for are like a younger audience, that you really do optimize for speed. And again, this is a very weird thing as well. When we're sat down, things feel faster than when we're standing up. Again, maybe it's the adrenaline effect. Maybe it's because we're anxious when we're moving around, especially on a mobile phone. So you have to really think about these things when actually designing your experiences. But the perception is really important, because if you think about the 30% of users still thinking experiences are slow, even with fast sites, because we want to occupy people's time. So for the rest of the talk, I've done the boring part of all the numbers that you can share and say, look, it's important. Now let's talk about let's talk about design stuff, but then I always forget that there's this slide with more data. So average web page content. I mean, most people in this room are not technical. Would that be a fair assessment, right? And by technical, I mean writes code. Who writes code? Please raise your hand. OK, maybe I was a bit wrong there. It's always a good sign when you're on stage and you're wrong. But images make up a really heavy part of the web, right? So 52% of the content of a page will be images, and images are very, very heavy. So if you're like a person in your organization who just takes images of products and uploads it without really optimizing it, I have a great tool for you. This is an app called Squoosh, which I designed. It's a progressive web app, which you can actually use on your phone. And I'm going to demo it now. So can I get a demo? Yay, I can get a demo. Again, easily amused. So this is a website. You can drag and drop images into it from your desktop or from your phone. We've got some demo images that you can use at the bottom. So if I just click large photo. So this is the original image, as you can see here. And these are the different codecs that you can get. So for example, this is MozJPEG. Let's try, I don't know, WebP. And if I was to just change some settings, you can see it works here. And then we actually make the same image 90% smaller. So you can download that and use it. And it's free. And it's a progressive web app, so you can steal all the code as well. And we generally mean that. So it's very easy to use. At the moment, it's singular images. We are introducing batch images as well, so you can do a whole bunch of images together. But you can go, way, look, it looks exactly the same. Extreme close-up. Sorry, I'm just trying to freak out the organizers. Right, can we go back to the slides? So that's one small thing you can do, and it requires no code. It's just like uploading and changing images. And remember, that's a really big, heavy thing on the web, is images. And what was really funny, at Chrome Dev Summit, we demoed this, and we took like the main header from the I/O website and showed how large it was, and we made it smaller on stage. So we're embarrassing ourselves. And we reduced the main image by like 83%. So this is just one small thing you can do, and this tool is easy to use. It works in all browsers, which is good for a Google product. And you can actually download the code for free. Again, like if progressive web apps is something that you're interested in, you can gain access, especially the different components in this tool, so like pinch to zoom and stuff like that, because it works on mobile as well. So please, by all means, steal away. It's a free app to use. So when thinking about speed, generally speaking, like 200 milliseconds feels instant. 1 second, it feels like smooth. 5 seconds is acceptable part of the flow, but only if the user's really bought in. By the time you get to like 8 seconds, you will lose people's attention. So making experiences really critically fast is important. But it's all perceptive. Everything is interconnected. So like responsive touch and feedback. Have you ever been on a website and you press submit on a form and you just wait? It's like you engage, and then it's enrage. And then a frustration sets in and you press the button again. Why is that? Because you haven't had any feedback. Now what happens is you resubmit the form, the thing starts from the beginning again. So now you're waiting again. You press it again, and in the end you just give up. So giving users some kind of feedback mechanism, whether it's like in material design, we call this the ripple, where the thing will ripple out, or like active state, because you're reaffirming to the user, we've accepted your action and we're doing something. And then maybe if you can include like responsive motion, so the thing is opening and closing, so the user can feel that something's been fed back. This is really weird. So when you have ripples that animate towards the left, they feel faster, even though the thing is exactly the same. People are weird, right? You don't really get this kind of effect because it's like Mac OS when it first came out, the kind of ripple. But seeing how things animate can actually make slight but compounding effects to the user experience. And this is, this is like a hack that we do on YouTube. Like, so you have this little progress thing at the bottom, sorry, at the top, that will animate as the site loads. That's fake. It will hang towards the end to make it feel like something is coming. Because progress bars are really hard to produce accurately because many things can affect. But you can still use these small, tiny details. A delightful animation. So if you can do cutesy things, obviously on the web this is really hard because extra stuff you add becomes really expensive. So you have to pick and choose where you do this. Like if you're an e-commerce site, maybe when you're accepting the credit card details and the person has to wait, doing something like this could make it feel really quicker. But you can hide the slowness of the site slightly by doing these really delightful things. Staggering is really important. So if you start off slow and build up, the experience feels faster, as opposed to the opposite, which is very strange. But this is the effect it has on people. If you can do small things like these little icon animations, again, this is again all about occupying the person's time, distracting them enough while the rest of your experience loads. Skeleton screens. You might not see these things animating. Skeleton screens are really interesting. And they've become very popular recently. But some of the stuff I'm showing you, I want you to think about it from a conceptual level, right? It's not about implement exactly the same thing. It depends on your context. So the worst thing you can do is show nothing forever, because no one has any kind of feedback mechanism. They don't know when anything is actually coming. The second worst thing, if that makes sense, is a spinner. Because again, the user has no idea what is happening. It's just it's spinning, it's spinning, it's spinning. Sorry, I am a bit weird. Having a skeleton screen is better, but the problem is when users will often say that the site looks broken as a blanket skeleton screen. And also, what you see from the implementation of skeleton screens is you have grey boxes, grey boxes, grey boxes, grey boxes, and then the content. That's really bad. Because essentially, you're just replacing grey boxes with a spinner with grey boxes. What you really want to aim for is a mixture of different things. So you have grey boxes, you have slight animation happening. As soon as the text is ready, you show it. Once you have an image, you may show something slightly pixelated or frosted, and then you'll show it. Again, you're giving context to the user every step of the way. Because you want to reassure and reaffirm to the user that something is happening. It can be really hard, again, like I said, to track exactly how long something will take because of internet connectivity. But if you can show slight progress, it will reassure the user that something is actually coming along. And another really powerful thing to do, which you don't see often, is contextual metadata. So with a new site, it doesn't make 100% sense. But you'll see, we'll say like author, loading article content, image. You're just letting the user know what is coming, what the context of it is. In Google Maps, we do this a lot. So we give this idea of what is the data that's coming so the user knows. Because just having grey boxes on their own doesn't tell anything to anyone. And if you leave stuff down to interpretation, most likely it'll be the wrong one. So, and that's all of my animated GIFs together. And they don't time. That's perfect. So, we say, like, video is the heaviest thing, right? So if you were to look at this not from a contextual point of view or from a user point of view, you would say, load the video last, because it's the heaviest thing on the page. But from a usability point of view, that would be the silliest thing to do. Because a person comes to see a video, they don't come to see thumbnails and titles, they want to watch the video. So what we do when the internet gets really slow, we show the video first, we load that first. Because that's what the person's come to see, even though it's the heaviest thing on the page. So again, I don't want you to go away thinking about the blanket rules. You have to think about conceptually for your product and for your context. What is the most important thing? Show that and progressively load everything else on top. Now, Bill Chung, who used to work at Mobify, has done a lot of research on skeleton screens. Really interesting stuff I do recommend. When you combine it with all these small effects, skeleton screens, staggered, things feel slightly faster. So I would recommend checking him out on Medium. But like I said, it's not about these blanket rules and just trying to apply all these things to your app. You want to understand you'll see millions. If you go to any UX talk, you always see one of these, right? So I say that cynically, but this is the perfect design. And these are your users. I have to do one because there's like a contractual obligation. So again, it's like what I'm trying to say here is like, skeleton screen's great, all these staggered things great, but you have to do it in the context of your app. So the way Google Photos does stuff is you'll see like the viewport here, the browser window, the images have loaded. Before the user scrolls down, these images have been preloaded already, right? But then what you find is, this is like a high resolution thumbnail. Before the users even come down here, we're starting to load like low pixelated ones. Because if the user was to suddenly scroll, we want to show that something is happening in the experience. It's not just a blanket skeleton screen. Again, it's about the context. The user comes to see their photos. Show them something so they know what's coming next. So obviously pixelated looks really horrible, right? The browsers by default will do some partial blurring. So what the team wanted to do is blur out all the images when their thumbnails are still loading because it looks much nicer. The problem is, if you add these kind of filters in browser, this experience becomes really sluggish because you're asking the browser to possibly add a blur on like 100 possible images. But you can remove that and just show the pixelated thing. So that's what the team did. When you have the thumbnails progressively loading, they will load the pixelated image first. But when a user taps on an image, the thumbnail needs to grow. So what we do is we blur this image, and then as the big image is loading, we swap them out. So for the lots of images, we'll pixelate. For the big images, we'll blur. And again, it's all about the context of your users. Like I said, not having blanket rules. Think about how the user will experience your product. And you may have seen this before, but this is where I talk about progressing and processing, doing and thinking. You want the concept of something is happening. You don't want users to see your site and think, oh, the app is thinking. It looks broken. Because that could be the spinner, it could be the egg timer, it could be the color wheel. You don't know what is happening. But if you actually have this progressing, that even if it's slightly staggered, the user can see something is happening. And again, it all comes back to feedback, letting the user know that something is actually happening, that the experience hasn't died completely. You probably have seen this, like Trivago did this crazy thing where when internet connectivity dies, you get this fun little game. Now you try pitching this to your CEO. What will they say to you? Are you nuts? But 67% of users stayed with the experience because they were distracted. It was fun, it was engaging. You keep them there so they can actually complete the experience. Because connectivity is not like a binary thing, was on and off. Connectivity will come and go throughout the course of the day. So just having these little experiences to say, look, don't worry, we've saved your results, it's fine, just wait for your connection to restore. Okay, cool, just play this game, and then back into the experience. And they proved that it works. So you could, so instead of just having boxes saying, you are now offline, or you are now online. Sorry, that was my weird, boring voice. Why not do something like this? Why not? It works. So the other thing about hacking user perception is navigation is a really big thing. So in summary, we say out of sight, out of mind. If the user can't see the action that you want them to perform, they won't perform it. So generally speaking, there's lots of different navigation types in material design guidelines. We have like top tabs, which is quite hierarchy when you have like very distinct sections which don't have that really strong relationship. One thing I would always say is make sure that you always have an icon and a label together. It's really important because context is everything. You don't, like an icon could mean many different things in different cultures. You don't want to risk that. So I know for the German sites, this is really hard because your words are like a mile long. And I feel your pain. But you really want an icon and a label together. That's really important. Context is everything. Bottom navigation, this is really popular with a lot of apps now because it's ergonomic. The float and action menu button, this is like a very Google-specific thing. The idea is that you force the user to make a single choice in their experience. Often, technology companies reward lots of features, and this is like the opposite. It's like, no, take it away and say to the user, you have to make a choice. And it can be really hard to sell that to your bosses, but it's actually proven to be really effective because you're saying, no, just do this one thing. Because if you think of UI as like questions, the more questions you ask a person, the more, and they have to choose one to answer, it's gonna be split. But if you have just one question, then they're gonna answer that one question, right? So that's what the flow and action menu button is all about. It's like you condense the task, you say, no, do this one thing. And then we have like bottom app bars. Again, it's like a combination of what I've showed before. And the dreaded navigational drawer, or otherwise known as the hamburger menu. If you've got multiple sections that are not commonly used, then it's okay, it's acceptable, like especially really big e-commerce sites. But know this, if you reduce the visibility, you will reduce the engagement. It's just the way it is. People often will not say, you know what, I fancy just going through every single menu item on this website, because I have nothing to do. So it's just a fact of life, right? This is a backdrop. It's like a new thing in material. Again, conceptually, it's really like a navigational drawer, though instead of something coming from the left, it comes from underneath the experience. So which one works best? Surprise, surprise, the one that you see. Facebook said that they saw an increase in perception of speed. Why? Because instead of doing 2 taps, you do 1. And that gets you straight to the thing that you're looking for. The same thing with Red Booth. They saw a session time increase. Again, I'm not saying everybody put a strip with lots of icon buttons at the bottom. Think about it conceptually. Users can see this first. On mobile, it's more ergonomic, so they're going to tap on it. So Keep, which is a note-taking app for Google, they don't do the same kind of style. They do like their own custom thing. But again, it's all about showing what you want the user to do. Again, Spotify, they reduced menu items. So then, remember, UI is like a question. You reduce the amount of questions, you'll get more definite answers in the other sections. So, you know, out of sight, out of mind. That's like the thing with navigation. If you want a user to do something, be as obvious as possible and just show the user, this is what you need to do. And it will feel faster. So in summary, avoid blank screens. Use bold animations to distract them. Make sure that you're progressing rather than processing. And always put navigation front and center. That's really, really critical in these experiences. How you do that is up to you. Different cultures have different approaches for things, and that's fine. So long as you take it from a conceptual level that you're showing the user, this is what I want you to do. It's fine to have multiple actions, but make sure you show the primary ones first. Otherwise, if you give the same level of importance to different items, then guess what's going to happen? Yeah, and also make sure you park the plane further away from the terminal. So because I'm amazing, we have lots of free stuff. This is an ebook, which is about speed. It will go through the research, which I showed, and then some of the technical things you can do from a coding perspective. So if you're taking stuff back to your engineers, they will really appreciate this. I'll let people take pictures. Woo! You have me on your phones now. This is a book that we released very recently. It's about progressive web apps. So if progressive web apps is something that you're really looking forward to exploring, we go through a lot of UX stuff here. More pictures of me on your phones. I have a huge ego now. And lastly, this I just launched. It's me on the screen. It's a UX course which I've just done. It's a free one on Skillshare, so if you sign up for an account, you can do it. And it's basically like an hour-long course where it goes through all of the steps in the process. So do it. It will be amazing, I'm sure. And if not, tell me, and I'll iterate, because that's what UX is all about. So with that, I'll say thank you so much.